Welcome to the only daily podcast focusing on compliance news of the day. Each morning, start your day with a cup of coffee and Tom Fox, the voice of compliance, to hear about 4 of the top compliance, corruption, or leadership stories you will need to start your day. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network.
Look, 2020 has proven to be the year of many things, and the same for 2022. But if you're a small business, this could also be the year you switch to a better payroll. Gusto wasn't just built for small businesses, it was built for the people behind them. Their online payroll is easy to use. Gusto can automatically calculate paychecks and file all your payroll taxes, which means you have more time to run your business. Plus, Gusto does way more than payroll. Gusto helps with time tracking, health insurance, 401ks, onboarding, commuter benefits, offer letters, access to HR experts. You get the idea. It's super easy to set up and get started. If you're moving from another provider, they can transfer all your data for you. It's no surprise that 94% of customers are likely to recommend Gusto. And here's the best part. Because you're a listener to this podcast, you get 3 months totally free. All you have to do is go to gusto.com/compliance. That's gusto.com/compliance. I'm telling you, you're going to love Gusto. Get started today. The Daily Compliance News for October 9, 2021. The banks behaving badly, yet again edition. We begin with that story as NatWest pleads guilty to AML charges. The guilty plea is the first criminal prosecution under money laundering regulations that went into effect in the United Kingdom in 2007. Subsidiary pled guilty that it violated AML regs. The guilty plea was made in court in London. The criminal charges brought by the Financial Conduct Authority stemmed from operational weaknesses in the bank's money laundering protections between 2012 and 2016 that caused it to fail to adequately monitor accounts of unnamed UK incorporated customers. Next up, the president of the IMF, Kristalina Georgieva, is in big trouble because of her actions when she ran the World Bank, where she pressured bank staffers to change the reports they were doing. They're doing business survey to put China in a more favorable light. Of course, she's denied these allegations, and it even goes so far as to offer a rebuttal, yet that just doesn't seem to square with the facts that she surely tried to influence the staffers to change the report. The controversies always also raised questions about China's influence in multinational institutions. It's become a huge distraction for the IMF. That's not the Impossible Missions Force. That's Tom Cruise, as the IMF tries to help coordinate the global economic response to the pandemic. Prominent economists have debated whether she should step down. And The Economist magazine called for her resignation. So it's up to the board now. Next up, corporate taxes are poised to rise after a 136-country deal, which agreed to the most sweeping overhaul of global tax rules in more than a century. Move aims to curtail tax avoidance by multinational corporations and would raise additional revenue of as much as $150 billion annually. But according to the accord, it must now be implemented by the signatories. And of course, the know-nothing MAGA hat-wearing Republicans in Congress have announced they're against this simply because it benefits the citizens of the United States. So the reform, though, sets a global minimum corporate tax at 15%, and you would think that even Republicans would recognize that the United States is never going to get to that level. And our final story comes to us also from the Wall Street Journal as two parents have been found guilty of all charges in the Varsity Blues case. Gamel Abdelaziz and John Wilson were found guilty after about 10 hours of deliberations. This was the first case that went to trial, and so is significant as it demonstrates the jury did not believe any of the defenses raised by the two parents, that they thought this was a legitimate donation and or they'd done nothing wrong and or this is the way the system works and or that the colleges involved were really the corrupt actors. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network and a proud member of C-Suite Radio. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you'll join me again tomorrow.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.